I want people to know that, it's not just a sit and wait for an infection to show up and then that's it. It's like there are things that you can do so that you feel empowered after your cesarean, whether it was planned or unplanned. And even feel great. Like it doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be numb. It doesn't have to feel icky. Like all of that can totally be worked on.
Welcome back to the Sensible Mama podcast. I am Paulina Westcott, your host. Very happy to be with you today. Today's guest is Janelle Fontaine. She's joining us from Canada. She is a massage therapist, and she has some areas in which she focuses that I find very interesting. I'm very excited to get into the conversation today. Welcome, Janelle. Say hello to the people. Tell us about who you are, what you do, and we'll dive right in.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Janelle Fontaine. I'm a registered massage therapist in Vancouver, BC. And my focus and practice, hands-on with clients, but also virtually, is supporting people after a cesarean. So this is a place that I've found myself in. I'm so passionate about because there's a massive gap in care when it comes to cesarean recovery. So if you're tuning in and you've had a cesarean, or maybe you are planning a cesarean, or you know somebody who's had a cesarean, or you support people who have had a cesarean, who might have a cesarean, this is the talk for you.
Can't wait. So this is all very new to me. Most of my listeners know I had both of my kids at home, and a C-section was terrifying. I was absolutely mortified of the idea of having to transfer to the hospital and get a C-section. Like, it was just, you know what I mean? Looking back, now that I know what I know, now that I'm a birth doula and I've attended C-sections as a support person, they're far less scary than I thought. Of course, I would do what I can to avoid one, but in the event of having to have one, I wish that I could go back in time and just put my pregnant mind at ease back in the day, that it's not so scary. And I think that having somebody like you who talks about recovery, because I've heard nightmare stories about recovery, and I was like, I don't want to go through that, you know what I mean? So I feel like having somebody who's got the knowledge, who's got the experience, is such a valuable thing. It's such a valuable conversation to have, even if you're planning a home birth and you have no interest in a C-section. It's good to just have the information, you know?
Absolutely, because that's when things get less scary. And hey, I'm right there with you. I actually had 2 home births as well too. And I'll talk about okay, how did I get to doing this work? But really, when we are prepared, things are just less scary. Like you said, like you've attended now C-sections, which is not really the reality for most people that are pregnant. You don't have to attend a cesarean in order to be comfortable with them, but we can definitely learn more about them. And then all of a sudden it's like, if things pivot, I don't like to say birth plan, I like to say birth preferences, because the reality is that like birth is one thing that we can't really plan for. You can plan for the fact that you're going to have a baby, but that's about as far as it's going to get, because there's so many deviations. And so if we can have a general idea of what those deviations might look like, then if we end up going down that road, then we're like, oh, okay, I've got a pretty good idea of what's ahead of me. And so it's just a little less scary. Layer that with having support. So whether that's doula care or a midwife, or an OB that's like really good with open communication and consent and education, then after it, all of a sudden these things don't seem as scary. Because the reality is that we also can't learn about all the possibilities in pregnancy and in birth. And so really having a team that can like back us up and that can like fill us in, like sometimes as we're going along, can be really, really helpful. So yeah, I encourage anybody that's pregnant to not do what I did, and that's like not learn about C-sections, because that I didn't. I was like, I'm gonna have a home birth. I am a totally capable, confident, competent human being. If I want something, it's gonna happen that way. But that's not the reality with birth. And I mean, I lucked out and had my babes at home, but it would have been a very different story if I had to transfer and didn't know what I know now, or even half of what I know now.
Right. And it's interesting that you said, you don't need to know everything. There's no way to know everything going into a birth because every single birth is different. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've told people, if I had a crystal ball that told you when you were going to go into labor or how long labor was going to take or how many contractions it was going to take, I would be so filthy rich. It's not even funny because those are the questions that everybody has. But birth
Yeah.
is going to unfold the way it unfolds. And we can control aspects of it. We can control our own reactions to it, which is, I would argue, the most important thing. And that starts with knowledge, and it starts with understanding and confidence and, trust in yourself that no matter what happens, we're going to make it through this, and I can pivot, and I can go with the flow, and I don't have to feel anxious or scared or nervous and all those things that honestly will, if you don't have confidence, you're more likely to go down a path that may be less than your desired plan. If you are confident and calm, you actually increase your chances of not having some negative outcome. Now, I can't guarantee anything, of course, but it does increase your chances. So I say, get as much education as you can. Find a birth team that's like epic, like epically supportive. And even if you don't want to talk about the scary things like C-sections and C-section recovery, learn a little bit about it because at least it'll put your mind at ease that, hey, in the slightest off chance that something goes less than planned, I'm ready for it. And then you don't have to think about it.
Or if I didn't learn about it, at least know who you can speed dial and be like, I had a cesarean. I'm now recovering from a cesarean. What do I do? Because that's the other
Yes.
thing too, is like sometimes we don't have the capacity, because sometimes pregnancy is less than straightforward, and learning about anything in the postpartum period or learning about the postpartum period in general might seem too daunting. So just having a general idea of like where you can go to if you need to pivot, you might not, and that's fine too.
Yeah, I love it. So why don't we start with like a brief, like, who are you? Why is this your thing? And
How did we get here?
how did we get here?
Great question. Because had you have told me even 10 years ago that this is what I was doing, I would have been like, no, this is not the case. So if we rewind it quite a bit, this is like back when I was choosing my career. I was like, I want to work with folks that are pregnant because I am just so fascinated by like motherhood and pregnancy and everything like that. So I was like, I'll be a midwife. But then quite honestly, I'm not good when people are bleeding. Like, just ask my husband. When my son split his chin open, I was laying on the ground in the restaurant while he was like approximating it and putting the steri strips. I wasn't helpful. So not a good midwife. We have figured out this is not the career for us. So I'm like, I could be a massage therapist and focus on pregnancy. Because at the time, I didn't really know about the postpartum period. That came later. Went to school, did all my schooling, got to the pregnancy part of my education, and I just didn't feel confident. I was quite honestly a little bit afraid of what would happen if I like did the wrong thing and somebody went into labor. Whereas now I've got people that come in the early stages of labor and they'll get their massage, they're going to go home, they're going to have their baby. Also helps that I work in a midwifery clinic. So it's like, if they need support, what better place, right?
Amazing.
So that's sort of where it went. Did general practice for a bit, found my way back into supporting folks in pregnancy, did a lot of education, got confident. Because again, back to the whole thing, when you know, it's not scary. When you don't know, it's scary. So, anyways, made pregnancy massage not scary for myself, learned about it. And then after had my own baby, got pregnant, had my own baby, and then I was like, wait, guys, there's this period after pregnancy that is like a thing, and it's called the postpartum period. And quite honestly, I was surprised. Like, I thought in my postpartum period, I was going to be going to coffee shops with my baby, we'll be walking the seawall, we're gonna go hiking, basically like a little accessory. But that wasn't the case. It wasn't awful. we saved that one for the number two. It wasn't awful, but I was just like, there is really a gap in care. It really felt like the reverse Cinderella effect. Everybody's there for you in pregnancy, and then you're postpartum or you have your baby, the clock strikes midnight, everybody's like, cool, you got this, bye. And it's like, I have questions, and there isn't as much support. So I set out to become a postpartum doula so that I could show up for clients, so I can educate clients in the postpartum period, and shifted my practice to that when I went back to work. And then, of course, I started seeing people who've had C-sections, and they were like, what do I do? And having had a home birth, I'm like, I don't know, which is not the right answer when you're seeing a healthcare professional. So, being the curious person I am too, I set out to learn. I find anything with like pregnancy, postpartum, like even perimenopause, menopause, cycles, like all of that, you name it, I find it fascinating. So off I went to learn. And then it's evolved from there. I've since had my second. He's now 6, and my eldest he's going to be 9 in a month. Like, how did we get here? I don't even know. And yeah, it just snowballed. My practice got so busy that I was like, I need to find a solution for folks who can't come in to see me in person. I was also having conversations with folks that don't live anywhere near me. And so I created the Cesarean Recovery Guide, which is an online guide that walks people through their cesarean recovery, and that talks about really mobilizing the tissues, and we'll get into that a little bit later, and sort of how we can support ourselves, because quite honestly, C-section recovery is not that complicated when we have the information. We're seeing a trend here. Get the information. Yeah, there is a theme here. And so I created the Cesarean Recovery Guide to empower mothers who have had a C-section to sort of know what to do if they can't get in for care. Now, I am definitely not the only person that supports folks in their C-section recovery. There are other massage therapists, there are pelvic floor physios. Like, we're seeing this more and more, where people are having conversation in, like, when it comes to postpartum care and support. So that's great, but there are definitely less who support post C-section, especially in the recovery. So created the Cesarean Recovery Guide, and then kept working, and then just last year started teaching other healthcare professionals how to support people in this time in C-section recovery. And so now that's what I'm spending my time doing. Working full-time, hands-on, one-on-one with clients, but also teaching other healthcare professionals how to support these folks, and then doing podcasts like this to spread the word, because I want people to know that, you know, it's not just a sit and wait for an infection to show up and then that's it. It's like there are things that you can do so that you feel empowered after your cesarean, whether it was planned or unplanned. And even feel great. Like, it doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be numb. It doesn't have to feel icky. Like, all of that can totally be worked on. So the long and the short, that's kind of how I got here.
That's amazing. What a ride. You know, it's this theme. I love this theme. This is like one of my, you know, a broken record things is knowledge is the path to control. Now, when I say control, I don't mean that you're going to control every outcome. That's not what I mean. But control of yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much to know, but if you know the fundamentals, if you know, and this is something that I'd love to get into with you, is you talk about the pillars, right? The pillars of C-section recovery. When you talk about pillars, it's what holds everything else up, right? You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be an OB. You don't need to perform a C-section to understand the fundamentals of how it works. But I think it is so worthwhile to have a core understanding of what am I dealing with, the basic do's and don'ts, right? And I'm sure that it takes the scariness out of it. It takes the complexity out of it. You know, it takes the overwhelm. I mean, postpartum, hormonally and emotionally and like physically, you know, like in the real world is already enough to deal with. You know, there's suddenly poop everywhere. You have to clean diapers and you have to remember to eat, which is like a whole thing, you know, when you're trying to get back on a schedule. There's a lot going on postpartum. So like, let's take a little bit off of your plate, mama. Prepare a little bit ahead of time so that you know what you're doing, and it's a little bit less overwhelming. So with that very lovely segue, I don't know, and I'm very curious, what are the pillars of C-section recovery?
Okay. So this is something that I kind of came up with because I kept saying the same things over and over and over again, and really is the foundation. It started out as 3 pillars to cesarean recovery, and then I had to add the first one, which is rest, because I was seeing so many people postpartum that were like, I'm doing all the things, but I'm just not getting better. And I'm listening to them list off how they're like hitting all the marks, but they're not, but they sound busy. And so I've had to tell them, what if between this appointment and next we slow down and see what happens? And it's not, because the reality is that we can't just, and shouldn't, lay in bed for like, say, 6 weeks. That's just not, it's just not helpful or realistic. So it's like, how can we just slow down and see how we feel after that? And every single person came back being like, wow, my healing just kind of like skyrocketed when I slowed down. So I think it's a little bit, I mean, this can be its own podcast in like how much pressure we have to do as soon as our babies are born. But it's like, what if we just slow it down, like delegate what we can? Maybe it means groceries get delivered, maybe meals get delivered. How can we like lighten the load a little bit? Speaking of load, actually, laundry and having somebody and like maybe friends or also maybe a service come and pick up your laundry for the first like 4 weeks postpartum. It doesn't have to be forever. Though I'm going to tell you that like if you go away on vacation and you're just like, oh my God, post vacation or post camping laundry, you call that place up again. You're just like, hey, come pick up my laundry, because you can really get used to that.
Crazy idea. If you're listening to this and you know somebody who is pregnant, get it for them as a baby shower gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, to like send off dirty laundry and it comes back folded. Like,
makes me giddy to think about it.
Yeah, exactly. Any mom is just like, oh, Valentine's Day is coming up, dads. If you're listening to this, dads and partners, you can do it. Or
I love that.
No, but it's like, what are the little things that we just send off for a short period of time? It's not going to be forever. Sometimes we think financially, oh my gosh, I can't. But it's like, what is realistic? Anyways, so how can we slow down? How can we rest? That is the first one. And like I said, we're not just laying there for 6 weeks straight, because we do need to move. And we'll talk about core engagement as our third pillar. But then there's compression. So compression being our second pillar. That is like similar to any other injury. When you have an injury, you apply compression, whether that be a tensor bandage or whatever that might be. Same thing is true for your core. And now it looks a little bit different because the same little thin, about this wide, stretchy thing is not going to do your circumference, especially not postpartum. So there are different compression options that are really helpful. They're helpful for swelling management, and they're helpful to sort of support your core, because post-pregnancy period, never mind having had a surgery, usually we feel a little bit disconnected from the top to the bottom. And so just having a little bit of containment can be really helpful. And when I say compression, we're thinking like a snug hug. We're not actually thinking like, we're not squeezing ourselves. We're not waist training. We're not any of that. It's like a gentle hug to kind of contain everything, to give a little bit of biofeedback to our lower abdomen, so that there's less swelling and there's more support. So when can that start? That can start as early as like say 24 hours post cesarean, and can go to about 8 weeks. But what we want to do is we don't want to become reliant on our compression garment. So the idea is that we wear it more at the beginning, those early weeks, and then with the idea of tapering. Because what we're also going to be working on is we're going to be working on core engagement during this time. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but with compression, we're not we want to keep it on our radar that we're not becoming reliant on this, because
When
that's
you
not
say
the goal.
reliant, what does that mean? What does that look like?
It's like, say you wear your compression garment and then you're not working on your core, so you're not getting strong at the same time, and then you can just become reliant on something else holding you together,
Okay.
right? So it's like you really want you want to be working on your strength, and that can start as soon as like 24 hours post cesarean. And I'm not saying sit-ups at all. I'll talk about that in pillar 3. I feel like we need a slide to be
I
like,
know,
this
right?
is
A
what's
little like
coming.
graphic thing.
But most people are listening to this, so we got no slides. Um, but yeah, so that compression piece is really important. Also, very important when you are applying compression and you are getting a compression garment, that it doesn't actually put downward pressure on your pelvic floor, because then we're potentially causing other issues. So with compression garments, you want to make sure that you can get some kind of lift to it, and that it's not being compressed more at your waist, and it's more over your hips, like, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Does that make
absolutely.
sense? Yeah. So, of course, if anybody is listening to this and you're just like, Janelle, what are you talking about? Please reach out. I am more than happy to support. I've also had some amazing conversations with other practitioners that actually speak through this, because like this is their jam, with compression. So don't be shy, reach out. You can find me on Instagram at nurturingthemother.ca. I'm always happy to support. So we've got our compression piece. After our compression piece, then comes core engagement. And as I kind of touched on, that can start as early as like even after, during your cesarean, because you're not doing any sit-ups, you're not going to CrossFit the day after or anything like that. Really, what you're doing is you are consciously breathing. And so with your exhale, you're really being mindful of using your entire core to bring in that contraction, to engage your core, to make that mind body connection. Because sometimes after we've had a little one, we go and we breathe and we're just like, is anything happening down there? Never mind post cesarean. So if we can start making that mind body connection, this is a lot easier for those who have been active pre pregnancy. Even if in pregnancy it was like kind of touch and go, if you've been active in pregnancy, usually it's a little easier to get that engagement and that conversation going between your brain and your body. But if that's feeling a little bit dodgy, just focus on the breath and focus on bringing that engagement. And if the lower abs feels like it's like there's not a whole lot going on there, it can be really helpful to just place a hand ever so like gently over top of your lower abs. And when you're exhaling, you're feeling that come in. And so sometimes our brain's like, I'm not feeling anything, but our hand is going, oh, I do. And so then we're reinforcing that connection, that communication. So a
Yeah.
strong exhale is really, really helpful. Inhale as
It's
well too.
really interesting as you're talking. I'm remembering. So first, after my first, I had diastasis recti, which is like a
Mhm.
separation of the abdominal muscles. I had a gap that was like 3 fingers wide or so.
Mhm.
And I was like, what am I going to do? So I found some exercises to do. And, the girl in the video, she's like, you have to breathe. And I was like, no, like get to the actual exercise. Like I want to know how to like actually fix it. I don't feel like I'm doing anything. It doesn't feel like it's doing anything. However, she knew what she was talking about.
That's why we paid for the program.
Yeah, no, the breathing, and it sounds so like
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I call myself sensible mama. I'm like, come on, like I want to do the thing that makes sense. I don't want any of this like woo woo, whatever, you know, whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, get over the breathing part. But what you're describing, I would put my hands like this on my belly, like not hard, just, and I didn't have a C-section, but it was still, I'd put my hands on my belly and I would feel the motions, and I could tell when I was doing a proper breath and when I wasn't.
Yeah.
And you're right, because when I took my hands off, I'm like, I forgot how to breathe for a second, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And suddenly I was like, oh, okay. And you begin to, like you said, like you actually have communication happening to that part of your body that to be honest, usually gets neglected because you're busy focusing on other things. So like taking a moment, it's really good because oxygen is just good for you. Like,
Yeah.
that sounds silly, but like taking a really good oxygenating deep breath is good for you on a cellular, physical level, aside from the fact that it also just helps you relax.
Calms
But
your
that,
nervous system.
yeah, like
Yeah.
hardcore.
Like
Yeah.
mamas need a calm nervous system, friends. Just breathe.
But the for the abdominal muscles, it was very, I mean, productive. Like the breathing
Yeah.
exercises aren't just breathe some air. It's actually, you have to know what you're doing. You have to like do it the right way. You can't just like inhale air and expect that's all you need to do. There's more to it, but you learn how to breathe properly, and that will serve you for the rest of your life. Like there are times where I'm like, okay, I need to like woosah, like
Yeah.
kids are going crazy, bedtime was pushed back half an hour. I'm like, and I can remind myself, okay, this breathing is actually, like you said, it regulates my nervous system. I'm like, all right, reset, let's go, let's tackle this.
And it's accessible. We could do it like in the hospital bed. We could do it when we're nursing. We could do it as like baby's sleeping on us, as we're feeding. Like you name it, we could do it. We could do it in the park as the kids are launching themselves off of who knows what. I have boys, can you tell? It's like it's really, really accessible, and it's such a good place to start. Also, when it comes to healing from a cesarean and with diastasis recti, okay, we're gonna get into this a little bit more as to like why and how this is important. So when it comes to diastasis recti and post cesarean, one of the things that we want to avoid is intra-abdominal pressure. So increasing our intra-abdominal pressure. And so what does that look like? That's when we're like pushing out against our abdominal wall. And so we're trying to bring that together. Oops, my cat's like petting herself on the tripod. She's like, fine, you don't want to pet me, I'll pet myself. So we don't want to increase that intra-abdominal pressure because that then puts pressure on the healing tissues, which is not helpful. And so this is where breath comes in. This is where, with movement, we can exhale, and that supports the tissues, that brings everything together. So we're not pushing into those tissues that are just trying to heal as we say turn over in bed or sit up or whatever that might look like. So even taking that conscious breath into like when you turn over in bed, it's like you're on your back. It's like exhale as you turn, because then you're bringing everything together. And it's like that just supports you through movements. As you're getting up and off the toilet, exhale so that you're bringing everything together. Good for diastasis recti, DR, or post cesarean as well too. It just helps support the tissues. The other cool thing is that it mobilizes the tissues. Yes, get rid of the cats. It mobilizes the tissues. So if we think of all of our layers, as we're inhaling, they're moving over over themselves, right? So an inhale, they're moving and they're feeling a different range. And then with exhale, same thing. They're contracting and they're also moving through the range. So, and where our bodies heal, they need to heal within a full range of motion. So if we're just like shallow breathing, like we get basically a little range of motion. Whereas if we're taking nice deep breaths in and out, then we just have that much more range of movement. It's telling our body like, this is the space that I need. So when you're healing, make sure that you're giving me this range of motion. If we're just small movements and all of a sudden we start like breathing big, moving big, whatever it is, then it's all of a sudden maybe there's some pain, some discomfort, some pulling. I see this with people where they're like sort of cautious and they're like quite brought in, and then all of a sudden they feel like, okay, you know what, maybe I'm going to venture out and like sit up straight, and they're like, oh, I really feel things like pulling downwards. It's like if we had that full range from the get-go, then there's less of that like pulling sensation. So
It makes a
sit
lot of
breathing,
sense.
it's a thing.
That's really cool. And it's funny because like as you're saying it, I can relate to it. It's I like the way that you explain it. It's just very easy to understand why that is the way it is. That's great.
And it's easy to do. We can start doing it from the get-go, and it's already, you're already being proactive in your healing, which is again one of those things. When we know what we can do, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I have a little bit of control over this, which is sometimes an issue, especially if a cesarean was unplanned and it just feels like, gosh, this wasn't my idea of a good time.
Yeah.
But what can I do that makes me feel like this is now my choice? And it's like I can now choose to do the things that feel good in order to recover from that which was less fun. So, so we've got rest, we have compression, we've got core engagement, and that core engagement will continue to build as we're recovering. And then the other piece is tissue mobility. So scar tissue mobility. We kind of touched on it when it comes to core engagement, just because with that we are moving our tissues. But even like this is where massage comes in. This is my job. But also something that people can do at home is really making sure that those tissues are moving with ease, because that's where we get less pain or discomfort. And this is where it gets tricky because people are like, great, so what are the top 3 techniques for C-section recovery? And I'm going to tell you it varies, because if somebody is, say, 6 weeks post cesarean and somebody is like 3 years post C-section, we're going to treat that area very differently. And so that's why that's like a really tricky question to answer. I'll touch on a few basics so that people know sort of like what to do, what not to do. Because really what we want to do is that we don't want to re-injure the tissue, right? We like natural healing. Our body is amazing. Like it's going to have that dialed. We just can't go in and start like thinking we know better, because like we don't. So give the body time. It's going to do its thing in terms of like the tissues approximating and healing. So when can we start massaging? So typically at 4 to 8 weeks, that's when you can start massaging the incision site itself. But what people want to look for is that incision fully closed? Because if there's any open part, we don't want to massage it, which like honestly makes sense, right? Infection prevention. With that being said, though, I've had some people that are like really keen and they're like, I'm still doing it. And it's like, no, we're going to take a minute and we're not going to do that. And we're going to wait for it to fully heal. So hallmark signs is incision is fully closed, a scab has formed and fallen off. And when that happens, then you're good to start massaging your scar. But start gently, start gradually, see how you respond to touch, and then build from there. So it's not like green light go and then go with all your might, because also, again, your nervous system is going to be like, no,
Let's not.
let's not. Exactly. So keeping that in mind, if there's an infection that has occurred, then after we want to wait for that infection to clear, and then you want to give it that 4 to 8 weeks in order for like the dust to settle. So that can sometimes be a local infection. That can sometimes be more of a like systemic infection. So like not so much on the incision level. We want to wait for that to clear. So that just resets our timer. So say the infection clears at like 4 weeks post C-section, then we're going to wait 8 to 12 weeks for to start doing any hands-on work. With that being said, can we do things before? Yeah, absolutely. You can treat above the incision. Really, really, really helpful. This is not something so much that, I mean, for the super keeners, maybe I will give if they want to learn about how to do manual lymph drainage when they're postpartum with a newborn, but not most people do. But you could see a massage therapist who's trained in manual lymph drainage to help like move the lymphatics along. That's where you'll see any kind of swelling. That really helps with like swelling management. Also general treatment to the abdomen can be really helpful, especially with constipation. A lot of people post C-section can be quite constipated. Just the joys also of being postpartum, figuring out our water intake and all that good stuff. Seeing a massage therapist to like move things along. can be really helpful and sort of like reflexively affects the area that you can't touch as well too. So still helpful for healing. Um, Oh yeah, how much pressure? That's another question that I get all the time. And I say the amount of pressure that you would use to check an avocado for ripeness. And so this makes sense in the sense that you are a dynamic being. And it's like we meet that tissue resistance. And once we've met that, that's where we're going. We're not actually pushing through that because that's where you're going to get pain and discomfort. And like you're going to work at a level that's going to soften and then you'll be able to go deeper. And that's going to soften and then you'll be able to go deeper. But just to go like deep from the get go, our nervous system usually says no. Our whole being usually says no. Some people aren't even comfortable touching their abdomen like post C-section.
Right.
So it's like for those folks, like we need to build up. And if we're building up, we're not building up and going in guns a-blazing. It's like you're starting by like
So I'm going to ask a question on behalf of a hypothetical me who had a C-section, because this is this is the kind of thing that
you're
I
like
would
now
do
I got
is-
questions.
Well, yeah, because like
Yeah.
if I had a C-section scar and I was told that massage would help,
Yeah.
I would think perhaps that the more I can do, the harder I can do, the faster I can recover. True or false?
False.
Okay.
False.
Explain
Yeah.
and tell me why.
Okay. Ooh, okay. So it takes 1 to 2 years to heal from a C-section. So now, if we have that timeline in mind, that means it takes time. That means that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And so we can't go out and do all the things because we're going to get gassed. It's not going to work. It's going to be too much. Again, we want, like, our body needs to take the time to heal. Like, it just takes time for things to approximate, the scar tissue to get laid down. Scar tissue actually matures too, which is really cool. So it's like there's different types of collagen depending on where you are in your healing phase that makes up your scar. In my course for healthcare professionals, we talk about this, and it is so fascinating, the science of scar tissue, but we're going to save everybody sort of all the details, but just know that it takes 1 to 2 years. And so that's also why we're going at it slow. We're not trying to like, there's no window where it's like, if you haven't hit all these check marks by this point, you're screwed. Because I get people 2-3 years down the line and they're like, I had a C-section 2 years ago. Is it too late? And the answer is no. It's not too late. You can still massage that tissue and notice huge improvements. Because the thing is that scar tissue is changeable and we can get it, like if it's feeling sticky, if it's feeling restrictive, moving those tissues and like massaging those tissues will have it so that it moves with more ease. Therefore, we move with more ease. There's less pain, there's less pulling. I've seen people like not have any symptoms when it comes to their C-section scar. And then after they hit perimenopause or menopause, or they take on a new activity, and now all of a sudden they're like, ooh, I'm actually feeling it. No, I wasn't feeling it before. And so then we start treating that scar that can sometimes be 20, 40 years old, and then they're not having any pain or discomfort. So it's never too late. Don't go out guns a-blazing. It takes 1 to 2 years. It does not take 6 weeks. You know how people are like in the healthcare profession, they're just like, so at 6 weeks, you can go back to all your regular programming.
Yeah, I call
No.
BS.
Yeah, total BS. We can't very much call BS straight to their face, but also it's like,
not?
no, it I don't know.
I mean, so I think you
Not
and I
my
talked
scope of
about
practice.
this. So I think you and I spoke on the phone about this, but for me, just again, I draw from my own experience. Other people have their own, but for me, after my first baby, I was like, yay, at the 6-week appointment, I'm good to go to whatever activities I want to do. I can start, exercising. I can do, fun activities with my husband and so forth. And I remember I went to my 6-week appointment. My midwife's like, you're healing great. You're doing good. you feel good? I'm like, I guess. I mean, this is my first baby. You know, I don't really have much to compare to, but I think I'm doing fine. And I went home and I'm like, I don't feel normal. This is normal. Is this how the rest of my life is going to be? Is this my new normal, you know? And frankly, it took me 6 months to feel actually, like, I kept trying to gaslight myself into thinking that I was normal now. I'm like, I'm fine now. I'm normal. And
Let's go for a run. Not normal.
no. And then my body's like, what are you doing? Stop. 6 months later, it's like summertime, and I was like, oh, I can do this. I can, like, feel like my own whole human again. And that was very eye-opening. And so going into my second, you know, during my pregnancy with my second kid, I was like, okay, I have an adjusted reality of, like, how this could actually go down. And to my wonderful surprise, I got the exact opposite end of the same spectrum with my second kid, where, you know, and we can say it's because of something or because of something else, or maybe it's a group of factors, like, who knows? But with my second kid, I was 2 weeks postpartum, and I was like, where is that feeling of, like, feeling like my body is foreign? And I felt phenomenal. Like, phenomenal. Okay? And I was like, okay, cool. So, you know, you mentioned this on your Instagram, is don't compare your postpartum, your healing, your weight, your anything to
Not
another
even to yourself.
or even to yourself.
Yeah.
Because I could, like, had it been reversed,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It would have been even worse, where I would have gone, hey, well, last time it was 2 weeks and this time it was 6 months and something's wrong with me and maybe I'm broken and you know, like the mental
Knitter
gymnastics.
natter.
Yeah, it's what was the word you just used?
Knitter natter.
I love that. I've never heard
It's
that.
like little old ladies that are in there.
It is like little old ladies
Like,
and all
these are my
bickering.
opinions.
I love
Not
that.
helpful. Actually, I like little old ladies, especially as I get older. I'm like, wait a second. There's
They're
lots of
onto
wisdom.
something.
They're onto something. Just sometimes they're not helpful.
Sometimes they're very forward and they tell me that I'm very wrong. No, but like, but that's the thing, is you have to just focus on what's happening now and treat it now. Don't compare yourself to before. Don't think about, you know, oh, well, my neighbor over there, she was pregnant, she bounced back, and that celebrity on Instagram who probably has, like, oodles of money to throw at all sorts of various different, you know, body modification surgeries and, you know, Botox this and whatever and filters and who knows what else. And somebody's probably watching their kids and they're getting lots of, whatever. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Also, Instagram, like you said, Instagram is the highlight reel. Yeah. You don't see reality on someone's social media. So, like, if you see somebody who just had a baby and then you see a picture of them all, you know, glorious and skinny and energetic, you probably saw a reel that was all of 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind, because you don't know what was happening that morning to the person. Like, I've seen people's social media where you're like, that person was not in a good place. They're miserable. They were throwing up. They're sick. They're whatever. And then suddenly they're like on Facebook going, ah, and you're like, what? And then that video turns off and they go right back to whatever troubles. And I'm not saying this to, like, say that people are bad or they're liars or anything, but it's just the truth.
It's a highlight reel.
Yeah.
It's a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Not everybody's reality.
Yeah.
All the time.
And I imagine
Plus, we can't film when we're throwing up.
Nobody would want to watch it.
We're busy barfing. Or losing our coconuts. So I was like, sorry, I didn't have time to film me being like, ah. It's a lot easier to film
It's
when
really
we're
funny.
put together.
So funny story about this. When I was preparing for my first home birth, I would watch a lot of birth vlogs, right? Again, even if it's a half-hour vlog, it's still the highlight reel.
Yeah.
Because you see the girl in the tub going, You don't see that 30 seconds earlier, she was barfing her brains out or screaming at her midwife to stop touching her or calling her husband names or, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that everybody's birth is like that. Like, but I'm just saying that what you see online, it's just not reality.
No, no. And I had great births, but I still remember asking my midwife, who thought this was a fucking good idea? I was just like, this is dumb.
Almost every birth that I've attended at one point or another during the birth, including at least my first, maybe my second, I don't remember. Somewhere along the way, the mom goes, we're not having 7 kids, we're one and done. Or,
Yeah.
we're adopting next time. Or, this is all your fault, why'd you get me pregnant? Or, you know, like some variation
You can
of,
have the next baby. I don't
I
care that
have
it's
all the
physically
regrets.
impossible. We will make it happen. Come out of you.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
then, you know, and then 6 weeks to 6 months postpartum, you're like, can I have another baby?
I know. When the dust settles, we're like, oh, that wasn't that bad.
Wasn't that
It's
bad
like,
at
ask
all.
us like 2 months ago and we would have been like, you're crazy.
Bananas. Women are crazy.
So much. Yeah. But we're wonderful.
Amazing.
So cool. Yeah. I know. I think of that over and over again, that this is the population I get to work with. Like, there are so many parts about my work. Like, so on that 6 month mark, this is what I see time and time again in my treatment room, where people at about 6 months, they're kind of like, I think I'm back. I think. I'm not sure. And then it's like between the 6 month mark and the 9 month mark, this isn't necessarily post C-section, but that people are just like, yeah, yeah, I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling like my brain can like connect things a little bit better. You know, I can like plan things. I can get out of the house with confidence. Like all of the things, right? It's like that 6 to 9 month mark really is where I see people like settling into motherhood. It's like we've shaken them
Yeah.
up, and then that's where we start to settle into motherhood.
The
Physically,
interesting thing is,
emotionally,
I
all
think
of
that
that.
back in the day, this was the norm. Like, you weren't expected to go
No.
gallivanting and, you know, whatever. Um, and now, I don't know, I blame it on social media again. You know, the pressure is so high to go to the party and throw a big bash for, you know, some event or go on the trip or whatever it is.
Hmm.
It helps, and I know that, like, in the moment postpartum, it feels like forever.
Yeah.
It does. It feels like this is my life,
My new
and
life. Yeah.
every stage just seems endless sometimes. You'd like, and so I realized that if somebody had told me this when I was in it, I would have been like, yeah, whatever, you know, but I'm gonna try anyway. It does end. Whatever this phase is, it is just a phase. You
Yeah.
know, babies, you know, your milk's coming in and you're having trouble latching and so forth, and it feels like it's the end of the world, and truly it is massive, and it's real, and you're not crazy for feeling the feelings that you're feeling, but you have to know that this phase is going to end. And
Hmm.
so my advice to this mom somewhere is you've got to try to find the things to enjoy about what is happening now. Slow down, take a breath, you know, relax. This isn't forever. Okay, so you didn't get to throw, I don't know, your husband his big 40th bash, or, you know, whatever the pressure is, do it next year. You know what I mean? Like, life is going to go on. Even in parenting, you know, like the potty training phase, and you're like, I'm over it, you know? It's not going to be forever. It feels like it's going to be forever. It's not. It ends. Recovery, postpartum, when you're like, is my body ever going to feel like it's my own body? The answer is yes, but don't feel like it has to be tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
give your body some appreciation for the incredible miracle that it just performed, because holy moly, that's amazing, right?
Hmm.
And then give yourself a little grace, give yourself a little rest, take a breath. It's going to be fine. It is.
Absolutely. For sure. And it's like the good things and the bad things are both phases. So
Yes.
it's not just all the bads. It's not just all the goods. Like Like it's just, it's all a phase. And the crazy part is that you miss it. You miss it afterwards. And it's like, oh, remember when we used to like snuggle and you used to feed like nonstop? I'd go back and do that. It's so weird. It's so weird. But what I've realized is that I am going to miss this. I'm going to miss 6 and 8. And I'm going to want to come back to this. And so, like, as a parent, one of the things I am really setting out to do is to spend as much time as I can with my kids fully present so that I'm not like, oh gosh, I wish, I had taken more time off, or I wish I would have, whatever it might be, because I know I'm going to miss this just how I miss when they're 3 and 5. As much as that's like just bonkers, like when they're little, it's just like all the bonkerness. It's like you miss it. You miss
But
their
it's like
little
you said, it's the
voices.
good and the bad. Like
Yeah.
postpartum for me, the first time was rough. It was hard. I was struggling. But seeing the teeny tiny little fingernails that were just impossibly perfect and watching this little chubby little Michelin man of a child that I had, and like I don't know, for me breastfeeding was challenging, but it was also just wonderfully fascinating, and I was like, my body is doing this. What?
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy, right? And I do. I mean, I hopefully plan on having another at some point, so I get to. But even so, I know I'm not going to have that experience again, because that
Yeah.
was that postpartum period with that baby.
Yeah.
And my second one was totally different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's very helpful advice, and I encourage moms to try to come to this realization as early on in parenting as possible. Just take the time to enjoy it. It's marvelous. Even the crazy, hectic, wild parts. Appreciate how crazy, hectic, and wild it is, and realize that you're gonna laugh about it later.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't need to love it all. There are days where we could be like, nope, this is not my idea of a good time at all. No.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like it's going to end. And I think once we know that there is an end, it takes the pressure off.
For sure.
It takes the sting away a little.
At least there's like, I mean, it's so cliche, but there's the light at the end of the tunnel. You can like, maybe the tunnel's really long, maybe it's kind of short, but you can see
you have
it.
no
And you have a
idea.
focal point, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, there is something else. After this, there's another chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. We went down a rabbit hole.
We did. This happens. I'm looking at our list. We had a whole list.
I know
of,
that's what I was glancing at. I was
things,
like, wait,
you know.
what do we want to cover?
I mean, we covered a lot. My goodness. Okay, tell me some like fun fact, some really weird, crazy, unusual thing that you've learned about postpartum or C-section recovery, or something that is just a fascinating tidbit that you found to be surprising.
So many things. But the first like thing that really yelled in my brain is that on an incision, you can have multiple types of scars. And so oftentimes we think like an incision, well, it all happened at the same time, so it should all heal the same. Well, basically never. I don't, maybe a few, but like it always heals at different rates. Even the side that it was tied off on will heal at a different rate than everything else. Just because we think, well, likely, not always. There is never an always when it comes to healthcare. Like people are so different. But anyway, so that's really fascinating. So if people are looking at their scar and going, "Oh gosh, does this look normal?" It's like this part looks a little thicker, this part looks a little thinner, this part, is a little darker in color, and this one's lighter. Yeah, totally normal. If there's an infection, that's where you go see your primary care provider and be like, there's heat, there's redness, it smells, like straight to your primary care provider. But even like I'm thinking 6 months down the road, like 4 months down the road, usually at about the 1 year here mark, that's when we see things start to really look more cohesive. So it's like a lot of scars that we see online are mature scars. And those are like that fine white line scar. That's a mature scar. That's a scar that has like done the work. But it's like at the beginning, it's not going to look like that. And that's totally normal. And like I mentioned, there's different types of scars that can also happen on an incision as well too. A hypertrophic, so fine line is like our basic scar. It is what it sounds like. You've got hypertrophic scars, which that's where it's like raised a little bit. And then you've got keloid scars. That's where it kind of like, I like to think of, if we were to take a cross section of it, it would look like an ice cream. So it kind of like that, say this is the borders of the incision, it goes like this after it's healed. That's like, I'm over exaggerated, though some can be quite raised. But ultimately, like there's different parts of an incision that can heal with different scar types. With hypertrophic and keloid scars, there's different types of things that you can do. Something actually, this is helpful to talk about, is that if people are noticing itching on their incision itself, not above, because usually if it's numb, when the numbness starts to go away, it gets a little bit like tingly, itchy. That's numbness coming back. But if the incision gets itchy, then after that might be an indication that your scar is sort of continuing to grow and be like hypertrophic and or keloid. In which case, then it depends. Some people are like, I'm cool with that. That's totally fine. In which case, that's totally fine. You're cool with that. That's great. But if you're like, you know what, this is bothersome and this is something that I would want to address, go see your primary care provider sooner rather than later. And there's things that can be done to help with the scar tissue. Because ultimately with those scarring types, it's the body gets stuck in the lay down of scar tissue. So it's just like it keeps going more and more and more and more. With a hypertrophic scar, it can go down and become a fine line scar. It can like get out of that cycle and actually flatten. But sometimes the keloid scar, it just kind of keeps going. Not that it'll grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, but that it will stay raised for quite a bit of time.
Very interesting. Wow.
Told you it was interesting.
It is.
I find it interesting. I find so many things interesting.
we are alike in that, where I'm like, you know, before I ever got into podcasting about birth or even the idea of being a doula had ever crossed my mind, I just found, I mean, I don't read books because ain't nobody got time for that right now, but I do a lot of audiobooks. And I was just like gobbling up audiobooks where I'm like, I want more about birth. I want more about, you know, birth support. I want more about different aspects of just like, I just want to eat all of the information because the female body is unbelievable. It is ridiculous. Like, I mean, we don't have time. We're already at an hour and I should let you close and, you know, tell people where they can find you. But like the things that the female body does, breast milk is redonkulous.
Yeah.
The placenta is amazing. That your body creates it? What?
Yeah.
And then that you can grow a whole human inside you, a whole human, sometimes more than one at a time, which is like, you know?
Yeah.
And then you can just carry on living after you've given birth. Like, if you really just stop and think about it, like, that's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's so
I know. I get to witness this day in, day out. Don't have that many pregnant clients, but last week I had a client that was early in her pregnancy, and you could just, when she's laying on her back, just see the beginning of a bump. And I'm just like, I see your uterus. Like, you know, it's like, it's so cool that we expand and we like make space for an entire human. And even in the early beginnings, it's just like, there's the whisper of a little something that's going to be pretty big, you know? It's just going to be life-changing. No big deal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This is amazing. We should definitely do another episode sometime down the line because I'm sure we could find another hour of conversation about literally anything. But
Products that
because
support recovery.
literally, right? We do need to talk about that because I have like products that I recommend and I have some belly binding things that I use, but I'd like you to tell me which ones you recommend. We'll do that off air. I'll do a blog or something about it. I'll, link to your site. But we are coming up on an hour, and unfortunately this conversation does have to, like all good things and bad things in life and in motherhood.
It's a phase.
It's a phase and it does come to an end, as we alluded to earlier. So with that said, please tell my listeners and my viewers where they can find you, social media, your website, and so forth.
Totally. Okay. So nurturingthemother.ca is my website. That's actually where you can grab, for now, it's a freebie. It'll probably be replaced with something else later on in the year, in which case you can always reach out to me and I can send it to you. But it's products that support recovery. That is the freebie. You sign up, you get it. It's a great little list of things that you can do that are relatively easy, because postpartum, sometimes you don't have the bandwidth. It's a good place to start. So nurturingthemother.ca. I'm on Instagram every day talking about C-section recovery, and that's at nurturingthemother.ca. I've got the Cesarean recovery guide, as I talked about. That is for mothers as they're recovering from their cesarean. And for listeners here, I've got a discount code, and it is Sensible Mama. All one word, gets you 10% off the Cesarean recovery guide. It's also in Canadian dollars, so it's basically like free for you guys once you do the conversion. But anyway, so that is available to you guys. Now, if you're listening in and you are a healthcare professional and you want to show up more for clients who have had a cesarean, or you want to just expand your knowledge, I do virtual teachings, also in person, but virtual. I teach Nurturing the Mother Cesarean Massage and Rehab for healthcare professionals. It's a mouthful, but that's like multiple times a year. The next one is in March. The next in-person is actually in Vancouver, BC in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. But all of this is on my Instagram. Really, the most up-to-date information and everything like that is on my Instagram.
That's amazing. You're amazing. Thank you so much for that. I will definitely make sure to have links in the description so people can find it easily. This has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. Very much enjoyed our conversation.
All right, everybody. I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a good one.